Tonight, an explosion of violence in Mexico, forcing thousands of Canadians to take shelter.
The fire is pretty intense. The situation is volatile.
Mexico takes down a drug lord. His cartel responds with force. Canadian tourists caught in the middle.
Shot scores! Jack Hughes has won it!
Hockey heartbreak for Canada to close out the 2026 Olympic Games.
Obviously, we did everything but score.
Just 21 medals overall, why Canada struggled to own the podium.
You're an awesome player to watch.
He brought you Heated Rivalry, but never expected the surging popularity.
For the show to have done what it's done is pretty extraordinary.
How a Canadian created a global sensation in the Sunday Interview.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hennemensing.
Canadians in Puerto Vallarta, one of Mexico's most popular tourist destinations, are being told to continue to shelter in place tonight. Streets locked down, flights canceled after the Mexican military killed a powerful drug lord and violence erupted. For hours, this was the scene throughout several states, burning vehicles being used as roadblocks as gunshots rang out in the streets. The violence sudden and terrifying. Now people are hunkering down, trying to stay safe and waiting to see what comes next. Jorge Barrera is in Mexico tonight and brings us the stories of Canadians caught in the middle.
Cartel, fire and fury, turning the streets of Mexican tourist hotspot Puerto Vallarta on this Sunday morning into something resembling a war zone.
I saw massive billows of smoke to the south of town.
The violence shocking for Ed Johnner, who is vacationing from Winnipeg.
As I walked downtown along the Malecon, I saw a couple of cars burning.
Very surreal in that there was constant explosion, constant siren sounds, but almost no other sound. Friends of ours who were down in a bar downtown watching the hockey game were ordered to stay inside. Everything went on lockdown.
The explosion of violence also hit the state of Jalisco's capital, Guadalajara, and spread to at least 10 other states. And it all revolves around this man, Nemesio Ruben Osuguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho, leader of Mexico's most powerful organized crime group, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Mexican authorities said he died following a clash with special forces who were trying to capture him with the help of U.S. intelligence, and the cartel, one of the most violent in the country, responded with rage.
Corre, 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 corre.
This was the scene at the airport in Guadalajara, sudden panic and chaos. Canadian Airlines abruptly canceled flights to and from Puerto Vallarta. Some planes heading in forced to turn back. There are some 4,600 Canadians registered in the area. Global Affairs Canada advising them to keep a low profile and follow shelter-in-place orders. For many of those trapped, worries mount.
Now, people don't have groceries, they don't have water. Hopefully, in the next couple of days, things will be back in order. Who knows? As I've said many times, it is Mexico.
El Mencho was wanted not only by Mexico, but by the U.S. One expert says security pressure from the U.S. may have caused Mexico to make a strategic mistake, going for the head of the cartel in this way.
There are sort of short-term gains that are political in nature, and it's a little bit theatrical, right? But what we don't know is what's going to happen next week. And I think that level of unpredictability is something that's utterly worrisome.
El Mencho is one of the last of the true drug bosses, operating in the shadows. Very few photographs of him, but he sat atop of the pyramid of a sprawling cartel. And now the fight begins over the pieces of this criminal machine.
And Jorge, the concern right now is widespread.
The violence has rolled from coast to coast. There's even warnings around that other tourist hotspot on the Caribbean, Cancun. But Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has praised the work of the military, and the security services are saying they're working on bringing back the peace.
Jorge Barrera in Mexico City tonight. A heartbreaking finish for Canada at the Milano Cortina Winter Games. An overtime loss to the U.S. in the men's gold medal game. As Briar Stewart shows us, they outplayed the Americans throughout, but couldn't score when it mattered most.
Shot scores! Jack Hughes has
This
won it.
was the end to Canada's Olympic run. A crushing overtime finish to the men's gold medal game against the U.S. The looks on the bench and in the stands said it all.
Your heart breaks, but they tried their best, and it's still silver medal.
It was an all-out battle. The U.S. scored about 6 minutes into the first period, and Canada hit back, outshooting the Americans throughout the entire game.
Oh, he saved it!
But they struggled to get one past Connor Hellebuck until deep into the second period, when Cale Makar tied it up.
Scores!
There were plenty of chances for Canada throughout the third, but it ended less than 2 minutes into overtime. 19-year-old Macklin Celebrini could barely look up.
I think we're just going to learn from this and use it as motivation. Just remember this feeling.
Sidney Crosby joined the team for the medal ceremony, but didn't play after being injured in the quarterfinal.
It's a lot easier playing than watching, but I think everyone should be proud the way the team performed. I thought that obviously we did everything but score.
The game-winning goal was scored by Jack Hughes, a U.S. player who took a stick to the mouth during the third period.
I don't know if those two go hand in hand in terms of, you lose your teeth and you score the goal, but I'm just, I'm so proud to be American. I'm so proud that we won.
This was the first time the U.S. men's hockey team won gold at the Olympics since 1980. The silver stings for Team Canada. Watching from the stands, Canada's women's hockey team, which also took silver after losing to the U.S. The thousands of Canadians leaving the arena were dejected and down, but like Peyton McWilliam, also proud.
The Canadians have the best players in the world, but this is sports. Sometimes the better team does not win. I'd rather be a Canadian with silver than an American with gold.
Because if anything, this loss will only bolster one of the great rivalries in sport. Many saw this as a rematch of the Four Nations face-off last year, which Canada won in overtime.
And Briar, this wasn't the first time the players needed more than 60 minutes to get a result.
Yeah, Ian, we saw so many games go into overtime, really intense, exciting hockey, and this all really marked the return of the NHL players to the Olympics. Officials will no doubt call all of this a success, and the plan is for NHL players to keep competing at the games, so perhaps we'll see a rematch in France in 2030.
Briar Stewart in Milan tonight. So many Canadians from coast to coast to coast started the day bright and early and gathered to watch the game with high hopes. In the hometown of Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon, no shortage of excitement celebrating Canada's tying goal. But all of Canada's scoring chances had crowds holding their breath. Across the country, bars and restaurants opened early for puck drop, some provinces even allowing the sale of alcohol. But in overtime, the celebration turned to despair. The men's team last won Olympic gold at Sochi in 2014.
Just absolute heartbreak, I think, for the whole country.
Unbelievable. You can't really dispute how good they are.
They deserve to win, but, in our hearts, they're winners.
As the Americans celebrated the victory, players honored their late teammate Johnny Gaudreau. Gaudreau's family, including his parents, watched on as his jersey was carried around the ice. The former NHLer and his brother were killed while riding their bikes in 2024. Gaudreau played for the U.S. in 5 World Hockey Championships. The team also brought out Gaudreau's young kids to be in the gold medal photo. The Milano Cortina Games ended on a disappointing note for Canada, even beyond hockey. The country's overall showing fell short of expectations. Alexander Silberman shows us how Canada's Olympic organizers are using this moment to call for a substantial boost in sports funding.
The Milano Cortina Games coming to a dramatic close at Italy's historic Verona Arena. Canadian speed skaters Valérie Maltais and Steven Dubois carrying the maple leaf into the closing ceremony. As the games conclude, Team Canada celebrates 21 medals overall, including 5 golds, finishing 8th in the overall medal count, Canada's worst showing since 1992. Some younger stars emerged.
Find her feet, Megan, yes!
Freestyle skier Megan Oldham, a 2-time medalist at 24 years old, and quadruple medalist speed skater Courtney Sareau, aged 25. But 3/4 of Canadians on the podium were 30 and older, in some fear for the future due to what they call a funding crisis.
They are forced to make impossible choices, to cut essential support staff, cut training camps.
The Canadian Olympic Committee painting an alarming picture.
We're creating a pay-to-play system in Canada where wealth and luck are some of the major determining factors as to who gets to stand on a podium.
At a Montreal fan event, this Olympic champion warns other countries are increasingly outspending Canada.
It costs money, so we need more.
He says the rising costs for athletes mean some are saying goodbye to Olympic dreams.
Recently, I saw 2 of them on social media. I said, okay, well, we stopped. My heart went like, I broke my heart.
The committee is calling for an extra $144 million in core funding. It says there hasn't been an increase in more than 20 years. As fans celebrate the thrilling wins Canada did manage to pull off, many say the unifying force of sport makes it worth spending more on the Olympics. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Montreal.
After suffering a major loss at the U.S. Supreme Court, Donald Trump now says he'll raise a new global tariff to 15%. David Thurton on the U.S. president's next moves and what they could mean for Canada.
Mark Carney out cheering on Team Canada. But in the background, Canada's relationship with the U.S. remains tense.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing.
Donald Trump's marquee tariffs have already been deemed unconstitutional. But the White House is not backing down, initially introducing a new global 10% tariff, and now the president saying on social media, effective immediately, he's raising the 10% worldwide tariff to the 15% level and will issue new and legally permissible tariffs.
The policy hasn't changed, just the tools have changed.
The Trump administration is using a different mechanism to introduce these tariffs, but it has restrictions. They expire in 150 days unless Congress approves an extension.
We'll see what Congress does. This is more of a bridge than a permanent facility.
While most Canadian goods are exempt because of the trade pact with the U.S., the worry is Trump could broaden another form of levy not struck down by the courts.
Unfortunately, the companies that are really hurting, the industries, the workers that are really hurting in this country are in sectors that are subject to a separate set of tariffs. That's automotive, aluminum, steel, lumber.
Also looming, Canada's trade deal with the U.S. is up for renegotiation.
I think we will eventually get there with the CUSMA deal. It's in the interest of all the parties, and it would be catastrophic for all if we were not to get to a deal.
But the Trump administration continues to make clear,
whether we won or lost, we were going to have tariffs. The president's policy was going to continue.
As it stands, Trump's new tariff takes effect on Tuesday, though already he's facing some pushback from some Republicans in Congress. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Russia attacked Ukraine's power grid with dozens of missiles and drones, killing at least one person in Kyiv. The strikes also damaged homes and a railway. And in western Ukraine, a 23-year-old police officer is dead after explosions that President Volodymyr Zelensky calls a terrorist act. This after the latest round of peace talks ended with little progress and ahead of the 4-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine on Tuesday. The U.S. Secret Service says its agent shot and killed an armed man who breached the perimeter of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. Katie Nicholson has more on what happened and what we're learning about the intruder.
U.S. President Donald Trump's Florida home crawling with law enforcement after the Secret Service says a 21-year-old man breached the perimeter in the early morning hours carrying a can of gas and a shotgun.
He was ordered to drop those two pieces of equipment that he had with him, at which time he put down the gas can, raised the shotgun to a shooting position.
That's when a deputy and 2 Secret Service agents opened fire and killed him. The FBI identified the intruder as Austin Tucker Martin of Moore County, North Carolina. They're now trying to figure out why he drove to Mar-a-Lago. In a statement, the Moore County Sheriff's Office confirmed a relative of Martin's reported him missing and that they had no prior history involving Martin before the missing person report. Trump normally travels to Mar-a-Lago on Fridays, but stayed at the White House this weekend. This incident follows 2 attempts on Trump's life in 2024.
If you want to really...
One at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where a man armed with a rifle fired at him from a roof. And roughly 2 months later, at a golf course near Mar-a-Lago, the Secret Service caught the glint of a rifle in the bushes.
Take 2 steps to your right!
And made a swift arrest. That man now sentenced to life in prison.
First reaction is, here we go again, sort of thing. We're kind of seeing some more and more of these kind of like lone wolves.
This former Secret Service agent says even though Trump wasn't at his private home, the service still has to keep it secure.
There's a game plan, so to speak, a protective plan for those residences, even though in this case, President Trump and the First Lady weren't there. That protective plan is in place 24/7.
As for the intruder, his cousin told the Associated Press he's from a family of big Trump supporters and that it was mind-blowing he would do something like this. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Greenland is pushing back against Donald Trump's plan to send a hospital ship to the island, which he has repeatedly threatened to take over. Trump's post said it was, quote, to take care of the many people who are sick and not being taken care of there. Greenland's prime minister responded with a quick no thanks, pointing out Greenlanders have access to free public health care. Not clear what prompted Trump's post, but it came just hours after Denmark's military airlifted a crew member from a U.S. submarine just off Greenland's coast for urgent medical treatment. A 23-year-old who was wrongfully chased down by collection agencies for $20,000 in fraudulent debt is sharing what she was forced to endure.
We know you did this. We know you do this. We're going to take your car. We're going to take your wages.
Go public on the flaws in Canada's credit reporting system. The collapse of condo prices has cost some buyers their life savings.
If I did know that this could have happened, I wouldn't have bought the condo.
The risks of purchasing pre-construction units. And helping churchgoers catch the game.
I want to apologize for those who think we didn't pray hard enough.
We're back in 2. Heavy snow and strong winds pummeled Newfoundland's Avalon Peninsula Sunday, knocking out power to thousands and canceling flights. Drifting snow and poor visibility forced St. John's to close some roads and shut down transit services for the day. This is the second major winter storm to hit the province in the past week. New York City bracing for what could be a historic winter storm. The mayor, Zoran Mamdani, has already declared a local state of emergency, and all streets, highways, bridges, and tunnels are now closed until noon Monday.
These are blizzard conditions. New York City has not faced a storm of this scale in the last decade.
It's not just New York in the path of that storm. 54 million Americans are under blizzard warnings tonight, and cities in neighboring states have also declared states of emergency. An Edmonton woman is going public tonight after fraudulent debt that tanked her credit score. She spent a frustrating year and a half trying to get Equifax and TransUnion to correct the record. Here's Erica Johnson with an investigation that made a difference.
Zoe S. Laurent Sposa, it is important to call us back.
The calls from collection agencies came daily. Accusations the 23-year-old mechanical engineer had racked up $20,000 in debt.
We know you did this. We know you do this. We're going to take your car. We're going to take your wages. And it was extremely scary.
She'd always been good with her money, responsible. But when she checked her credit score, it had suddenly tanked thanks to fraudulent debts under her name at PC Financial, TELUS, and Shaw. She tried disputing the information with Equifax and TransUnion on repeated phone calls, filling out online forms, even by email.
The amount of paperwork and time I've spent just making reports, it's been probably weeks of my life.
Debts would be removed, then reappear as a collection agency sold the account to another agency.
It should be flagged as fraudulent debt, and it should disappear forever. It should not come back over and over and over again.
Go Public has heard from others in similar situations, calling the system broken, the lack of service outrageous, with no recourse for people adversely affected. This lawyer and consumer advocate says problems are widespread.
It is so difficult to make any forward momentum on these things that most people give up.
He says Canada's credit reporting agencies are regulated by a patchwork of provincial, territorial, and federal laws, which makes accountability weak.
If you don't have to do better, why would you do better?
He says Canadians need better protections, legislation that automatically awards damages if a credit reporting agency doesn't take appropriate steps to correct inaccurate information. After Go Public contacted Equifax and TransUnion about Lorenz Bozer's case, Equifax apologized to her and blamed a name mix-up. Both companies say they've now fixed the errors for good. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our Go Public stories come from you. If you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. Some pre-construction condo buyers are losing massive deposits as plummeting prices leave them unable to get a mortgage.
I thought, we would be okay. I didn't think that somebody would come and take away our life savings.
Concerns defaults could spike as more projects are completed. Plus,
are there any gay hockey players?
None that have said it publicly.
The creator of Heated Rivalry on how his show has risen to prominence around the globe.
I was hoping that the show would be well received, that it would get kind of a culty following. I definitely would not have predicted the current outcome.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Condo prices continue to plummet in parts of the country, causing major problems for some pre-construction buyers. As Nisha Patel explains, many are losing thousands of dollars and their new homes.
Vitor Almeida is desperate. He bought a pre-construction condo just over 5 years ago. Now it's built, but the value has dropped and he can't get a mortgage.
If I did know that this could have happened, I wouldn't have bought the condo.
Like a growing number of Canadians, Almeida couldn't close the deal. He's lost his deposit of about $130,000 and may owe the builder even more.
I thought, we would be okay. I didn't think that somebody would come and take away our life savings.
Since hitting a peak in 2022, house prices have collapsed. Toronto condos hit especially hard, falling 25%. Pre-construction buyers are particularly vulnerable. Here's why. If they signed an agreement to purchase a home for $500,000, but at close the appraisal plummets to $400,000, the buyer needs to make up the difference.
No one has that money readily available, so they're having to come up with sort of creative solutions to bridge that gap in order to ensure that they can close.
That has some turning to social media, trying to find others to take over their units. If they can't reassign, they may be able to find an alternative mortgage lender. But walking away entirely is much more difficult.
There's no question that the developer will chase you through the courts, and they will win because you signed a valid contract.
There are more than 22,000 condos forecast to be completed this year in the Greater Toronto Area. Experts predict up to 35% of buyers could default.
No one escapes. Every single person is closing on a unit that they bought 5 years ago that's worth less than what they paid for it.
And if home prices continue to fall, those losses will keep growing. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Time now to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world.
Come here. No, you come here. No, you come here.
Heated Rivalry, a steamy sports romance that's become a global phenomenon.
It is a celebration of queer joy.
The Canadian creator of the television series caught off guard by its incredible popularity.
I definitely would not have predicted the current outcome.
If you haven't seen it, you've likely heard about its depictions of sex on screen, and that's where my conversation with the show's Canadian creator, Jacob Tierney, begins on tonight's Sunday interview.
There's not a lot of sex on TV anymore. There's not a lot of, especially fun sex that is not to be punished, or sex that is not violent, frankly. I think there's a lot of non-consensual sex on TV, and I think that is exhausting and psychologically numbing and damaging, probably. And so that was one of the appeals of this show. That being said, it is 100% also one of the risks of, like, is there too much? Will this turn an audience off?
Hello. Hi. Hello, I'm Jacob Tierney, creator of Heated Rivalry.
For Jacob Tierney, it was clearly a risk worth taking. His adaptation of Rachel Reed's hockey romance story, Heated Rivalry, is a cultural phenomenon.
You're an awesome player to watch.
Yes.
The fully Canadian production is bold, moving, and wildly successful.
One of the biggest shows in the world right now.
From the wildly popular breakout show Heated Rivalry.
We have got the stars of Heated Rivalry here.
It's also very
gay.
Montreal-born Tierney has been around show business his whole life.
I found proof on Dad's computer.
He's an actor, director, and executive producer. He's had success with Letterkenny.
Oh, Daryl. Oh, the humidity. Y'all might want to think about doing the same thing.
And Shoresy.
We got a ton of ice cream in the fridge too, so all set there.
Sweet Jesus, Spy, what do you got there?
Sanguinecot drumsticks.
Love a good stick.
But with Heated Rivalry, he's having a moment. Tierney took some time out of writing season 2 to speak with me at the Mattamy Athletic Centre in Toronto. Your show, your career, presumably, super hot at this moment. What's it like being you?
I love that my career, presumably. That is the way we feel in this industry. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's been pretty crazy to see what's happened with this show, and so quickly. I think the quick part is the part that's the most kind of remarkable, in the sense that we only finished airing in North America not even 2 months ago, and so for the show to have, done what it's done is it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, so in my newsroom in Vancouver, on social media, I started seeing all these references. A lot of women that I work with just love the show so much. You've been through this before with new programs coming out. Sometimes they're hits, maybe sometimes they're not. Why do you think this grew so quickly?
It's a great question, and I wish I had an answer for it. I think it's it's always a combination of things. There's inevitably an element of alchemy, of luck. This is not a science, this business. I think that romance as a genre is largely underserved. I think that female audiences and queer audiences have in common being fairly underserved. And so I think this show just hit at a moment when people were open to it and receptive to it. And I think it's also a show that really wears its heart on its sleeve, and I think that people responded well to that as well.
If we had done this interview in October, before the first episode dropped, would you have been nervous about the show?
I wouldn't have been nervous, because I didn't expect anything approaching this. So I think I would have been grateful to be working, to have made a new show, one that I was very proud of. I mean, I knew the show was good, or at least I liked it, which is really all I can hope for. I knew my network liked it. I knew we were all, optimistic. We got picked up by HBO, which is obviously an extraordinary achievement. And I think I would have been cautiously optimistic. But truthfully, I've been doing this a long time. And the level of, kind of zeitgeisty success that we've had with the show isn't something you even think about, because it virtually never happens.
Are there any gay hockey players?
None that have said it publicly.
I was hoping that the show would be well received, that it would get kind of a culty following, that it would be a sleeper success. That would have been the thing that I would have been thrilled about. I definitely would not have predicted the current outcome.
What was the point at which you realized this is different? This is a phenomenon.
You know, it's interesting. Because of social media, I was like, what's happening? Like, this has always been my algorithm. My producing partner, Brendan, has famously said, the reason I was supposed to tell this, make this show and tell this story is because my algorithm has always been hockey and gay. That's me. That makes sense. But I started to realize that, like, oh, this is happening to other people as well. And then the first weekend where the show aired, the first 2 episodes, was very intense. I'd never, we did a press day, and then we did another press day, and then it was another press day, and then it was more, and then it was like a morning where it was like, okay, you're talking to the New York Times and Rolling Stone and Entertainment Weekly and People Magazine, and I was like, what is happening? Like, they were like, somebody's doing a piece in the Washington Post, yes, but in the Wall Street Journal. Like, places that I was like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not correct. That shouldn't happen. So it was kind of a bit of a slow burn, but the amount of kindness that has been thrown our way collectively, whether it's the actors or the crew members or to me specifically, it's really been very, very, very meaningful and very special to be told so much that you've moved people and that you've made them feel good and you've made them feel seen, and it's been really nice.
Come here. No, you come here. No, you come here. No, you come here.
There's sex in the show.
Is there?
I think there is. Is there a lot of...
I have to check my notes. I think you're thinking of something else.
And so, was that seen either by you or the people you work with as a risk, the amount of sex?
I mean, it's a risk, but it's also the thing that gets the door open. I mean, that was always the pitch. But, the source material, these books, these romance novels, they're naughty. They're spicy, as they call them in the romance industry. And so what I was telling people when we were trying to get the show made was they're not successful despite this spice. They're successful because of it. That's what this audience wants. And so to remove that would be removing an element that I think makes these books very successful. But also with this specific story, with Shane and Ilya and Heated Rivalry, sex is the language with which these 2 characters communicate for so many years. They don't really talk to each other. They have sex. And the scenes are not gratuitous, or at least I don't think they're gratuitous. They're there to tell the story. They're a function of the story. They're part of the story. And it was also really important to see how they changed and evolved with this relationship. So yeah, element of risk, element of, that's what we always said. Somebody's going to write something about this show because there's not a lot of gay, smutty hockey shows on TV.
Maybe you've created a genre.
I didn't create it, but I think that maybe I've accelerated the popularity of a genre. I would say that's fairly true.
Beyond the sex, there is a lot of optimism in this story. There's a lot of beauty in this story. There is not much dread. My wife and I were watching it, and she kept saying to me, something bad's going to happen, and she was dreading that. That doesn't happen, at least not in the first season.
No, it doesn't happen. And it's very interesting that you say that, because a lot of gay audiences, a lot of queer audiences, a lot of people just a little bit older than me, but I think also my age, we are used to something bad happening. We are used to waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're used to a punishment, especially if we get to have sex. If you see sex in kind of queer sex in mainstream content, there is almost always a punishment later on narratively. And this show does not have that. It is truly, that's why I wanted to make it. It is a celebration of queer joy. And I know that there were audiences, I think also because it dropped weekly, that would be like, oof, okay, but next week. What's gonna happen next week? I even had a friend who told me, while the credits were rolling at the end of episode 6 in the car, He's like, I was still waiting for something, and I was like, what? What do you think they're going to do? Hit a deer? What do you think is going to happen? And then I thought, maybe I should have had them like get pulled over and just get a speeding ticket. Nothing else happens. They just get a speeding ticket. Maybe that would have done the trick. But the pleasure of getting to make this and show it to the world is that there is none of that. It's that it is a genuine romance with a happy ever after, or a happy, as they say, a happy for now, I believe is the language in romance. And that was why I wanted to do it.
You've been around movie making your whole life.
I sure have.
When we come back,
I want to be in the playoffs and I want to win some cups. I feel pretty aligned with the fans because we want the same thing.
Jacob Tierney talks hockey culture.
I would love for the next generation of hockey culture to be kinder, more inclusive.
And the influence of his late father.
He would be very proud of me. I miss him.
Based on a series of hockey-themed romance novels, Heated Rivalry is taking the television world by storm.
This is about queer people not being punished for their queerness.
The show's Canadian creator hoping that it helps spur change for the future.
I would love for the next generation of hockey culture to be kinder, more inclusive.
In the second part of my conversation with Heated Rivalry creator Jacob Tierney, we delve into his roots here in Canada and the success of a Canadian show on the global stage.
You've been around movie making your whole life.
I sure have.
Your dad is responsible for Bon Cop, Bad Cop.
That's right.
Which I only saw recently, and it is everybody should watch it.
He's from Quebec.
Martin Ward, David Butchard.
It is a fantastic movie.
I agree. Yeah.
What did you learn about this craft from your dad?
Oh, a lot. I think the most important thing he taught me as a filmmaker that I've really taken with me is that money is creative. You know, we work in this country, we do not have unlimited finances. We have a limited amount of money. And when we were making a film called The Trotsky, and basically what he would present these decisions to me. They were financial issues, but they were presented as creative problems. And it was like, you can't afford everything, but we can afford this or this. You have to pick. You're the director. And it was an incredibly valuable lesson to learn because it turns problems into solutions. And it forces you to take responsibility for your own creative decisions, which I think is a good thing.
Your father's passed away.
Yes.
What do you think he'd say about the success of Heated Rivalry?
He would be very proud of me. He would be very proud of me. He was always my biggest cheerleader. He was always my biggest supporter. And yeah, he believed in me enormously, but he also spent his whole career fighting for this industry and fighting for the Canadian film business. You know, he ran the Cinémathèque Québécoise. He was deeply involved. Sorry. I miss him. He was deeply involved, and he believed that we could be world class. He believed that we were capable as a culture, both in Quebec and Canada, of accomplishing great things. And I think he'd be really, really proud of the show, of me, and yeah, I think it would be pretty meaningful for him.
What impact do you think Heated Rivalry will have on the Canadian industry?
What I hope that it does is it encourages us to double down on investing in our own culture of saying we are capable of these things. They can happen. They won't always happen. It won't. But it could. And I think that if anything, it really should encourage us all or the powers that be, it's not up to me, to continue to see this industry flourish. I think culture matters in that way. You know, it is a level of soft power. You know, I've had people in government tell me that this show is soft power for them. Which is amazing. Mm-hmm. Good, let it be. That's wonderful.
And it is the only program ever on HBO Max with a reference to the Canada Treasury Board.
Are we sure? Was there nothing in Game of Thrones?
I feel pretty confident.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
I want to be in the playoffs and I want to win some cups. I feel pretty aligned with the fans because we want the same thing. And at this point, it's my job to take that personally.
Amelia? What do you say?
What about the impact of this program on the hockey world?
I think that's another big remains to be seen. I think there's been a lot of reach out. There's been a lot of beginnings of conversations that we've had with professional hockey, with the NHL and other organizations. Wonderful organizations like You Can Play, people like that who we want to work with and be a part of kind of spreading a message of inclusivity in hockey. I think hockey has a long way to go. I think hockey has a long way to go. Men's hockey, the PWHL, I think they're leaps and bounds. They're leaving the men in the dust, in that sense. But yeah, I would truthfully, I care less about the impact on professional hockey right now, and I hope that the impact is felt on younger people, among teenagers, among people who are going to be the next generation of hockey culture. I would love for the next generation of hockey culture to be kinder, more inclusive, and there are wonderful, kind people all over the place, including obviously in the NHL and everywhere. And hopefully, institutional change, I think, comes from the numbers kind of cresting and enough people being like, we don't want to talk this way anymore. We don't want to use this kind of language. We don't want to make people feel like they don't belong here. That's really what has to change, is people being like, I don't like this. I don't want to make people feel like they don't belong here. It's not actually about a hockey player coming out. That matters way less than I think the space being open and ready for anything, to be kinder in general.
You are working on season 2 right now. Like literally today.
Literally today.
And so you are in
Doesn't this look like work?
Yeah.
This is what I do. I come here to TMU and I go to work.
And can you tell us anything about what's going to be in season 2?
No, I absolutely can't.
Will it still be optimistic and without dread?
What I will say is that the second season will continue in the spirit of the first season, in that this is about queer people not being punished for their queerness. They all have journeys, and there are, again, there are ups and downs, but there will not be. There's no unhappy ending coming anybody's way. There might be a bit more suspense, maybe a few more cliffhangers, but yeah, that's also just a function of television.
If you haven't seen the series yet, 6 episodes, and my view, and I'm not the only person who feels this way, episodes 5 and 6 are note perfect. Coming up, a Halifax church doubles as a hub to cheer on Team Canada.
When a church shows a hockey game, you get a lot of messages from people saying, pray for the Canadian win.
Their unique watch party is next in our moment. You're looking at a group of churchgoers gathered in the lobby to watch Canada take on the U.S. in that gold medal hockey game. The watch party was at the same time as their Sunday service in Halifax, so to avoid forcing people to make a choice, they decided to make it work, and that makes our moment.
When a church shows a hockey game, you get a lot of messages from people saying, pray for the Canadian win.
We will rejoice and be glad, regardless of the outcome. But we will rejoice and be gladder. Canada wins.
So certainly I want to apologize for those who think we didn't pray hard enough. We opened the doors wide, good and early, for the 9 o'clock start to the game, Atlantic time. About an hour later, it was time for our usual church service to happen. I'm sure loads of people were conflicted because everyone was a hockey fan today. So there were many people who found themselves going back and forth between one and the other. And the good thing was that for those of us that were attending the worship service, people were frequently just interrupting the service to let us know that a goal was scored or a goal was almost scored, because we knew everyone would be watching hockey. We'd all be fans today. This was a perfect moment to do what we always do, just be together in community.
So I didn't play a role at all in choosing that moment, but it turns out I know Reverend Hayward, and The real test of her commitment would have been if she was still at her church here in Vancouver and had to open up at 5 a.m. I'm Ian Hannamansing in Vancouver. You can join me on CBC News Network weeknights at 7 Eastern. I hope to see you then. Good night.